in the computer. Okay, good morning, ladies. Thank you for being on with me today. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to do just a brief introduction, and I'd love for you both to give a little bit more extensive introduction about who you are, what you do, and really why mental health is important now during a crisis and beyond. So I want to welcome my dear friend Christy, and Christy is an extraordinary mental health professional, and she works very closely with women and men and young children that have experienced personal trauma, such as abuse or human trafficking. And she was the one and only therapist allowed on site during the Pulse tragedy. So I want to welcome you, Christy, and I have you share just a little bit more about you, what you do, and then we'll introduce my dear friend, Tammy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and connect with everybody. So I am a mental health professional, and I'm also an addictions professional. So I have seen a rise in addiction as well during this time, and trauma therapist. So a lot of those things are definitely on the rise with what's going on with the pandemic. And other than that, I work with human trafficking too, and I'm a first responder for trauma, mass shootings, and even things like what's going on now.
Thank you. Thank you for being that person. And then my friend Tammy Workman is she's the mindset reset guru. So she works with people to really have them work through things and then have their mindset really operate for them. So welcome, Tammy. Why don't you give everybody a little bit of your background as well?
Sure. So my name is Tammy Workman-Lopez, and the best way to describe it, I'm a hypno coach, fitness of the mind. I help people to see the high anxiety, high stress, fears, even depression are actually very helpful emotions. They're actually very normal emotions. And then also to take a look at what's driving them, and then to be able to create a new, kind of clean that out and create a new mindset, a new practice to bring in joy and freedom and excitement and communication to help create connection with themselves and with their family, their friends, other relationships.
Yeah, I think clearing out is what's really needed today.
Yes.
Great. So let's start with a little bit of, this is an unprecedented time. So Christy, why don't you share just a little bit, some of what you're seeing, so people really get what I might be experiencing and what you might be experiencing, although maybe slightly different, is very, very normal during an environment like this.
Yeah, there has been an increase, and this is what I've seen, and this is like statistic wide, just a rise in even child abuse, domestic violence, trafficking, addiction. And when you do think of all those things, most people are experiencing those things at home. So now that we're stuck at home, those things have been increasing, as well as mental health, anxiety, depression, PTSD, trauma is coming up from the past, because now we have so much time on our hands to be thinking about past trauma that maybe we weren't thinking about before. And the same with the isolation factor. Depression's on the rise, or even unhealthy coping skills that may have subsided before are coming back because we have a lack of outlets right now. And some of those unhealthy coping skills are coming back even if they've been resolved prior.
Right. We talked earlier before we hopped on and had this recorded. I'm a highly trained individual. I'm not trained in mental health, but I'm highly trained to deal with crisis and environment. And the other night I was walked out for a walk with my housemate, and I'm like, I am done with this. I am complete. I don't want to do this anymore. I need to be with people. I'm ordering pizza. And I called my pizza place nearby, and I'm like, hi, I want to order my pizza. They're like, are we still delivering it to XYZ address? I'm like, no. I go, that's how long it's been since I've ordered pizza. She's like, oh my, okay, we'll get your pizza right to you. And I shared with my housemate, I go, you can't let me do that again. One time was plenty. I'll order pizza again 3 years from now. But that was like, I was like, I'm done. I'm done. Right. And I'm trained. So millions of people out there that don't have the tools that we have to be able to deal with what this is. So this is very, very normal. Everybody thinks Jan's got it together. No, no, no. I ordered pizza and I ate it and it was good. Okay, so we're all experiencing this, and that's really what
Yeah.
I want everybody to know. Now, Tammy, what are you seeing with some of your clients?
Similar, actually. It's interesting. The ones that are staying really focused and staying on their goals, and like you said, we're trained, right? But that's just because we've been practicing before now. That's all trained means. We learned and we've been practicing until now. And so they're just really being tested and really having to go back to the tools that work for them. And so I've been seeing that. I've also been seeing that the folks, like Christy was saying, who don't quite have the coping mechanisms yet, or they had trauma in the past, it's triggering things. It's bringing up, more confrontation. It's bringing up, more irritation, more snapping at each other, more anger. Conversations that were talked about with divorce, it's now solidifying divorce, or, they think it's solidifying divorce, and some it is. So it's really just having people, on one hand, really great, come to, hey, I really got to work on this. And on the other hand, coming to a place of, we avoided something for so long, it's in our face now. We've got to make some really solid decisions at this point.
Yeah, really, really great. And Christy, I want to go back to what you had touched on earlier about the abuse in the home. There have been several articles about, the reporting is down, but the kids ending up in the hospital is on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
So that says something. And for parents out there that are normally not that, okay, normally that they can manage their anger, they can manage their upset. I used to, with my daughter, I'd be like, mommy needs 5 minutes in the bathroom alone. It's gonna be 5 minutes. And she'd still stand outside the door, and I'm like, just breathe, Jan, just breathe. Okay. But that was over periods of time, and she was at school and out of the work, so there was time for us to be separate. That's not so right now. So what are some techniques that parents can use if they feel that anger or frustration or upset rising up, and the immediate reaction is to yell or to swing at something? What's something that parents and adults can do to breathe through that, such that doesn't happen?
Yeah, and I have most of my parents, that is their hiding place, the bathroom right now. And they're spending more time in the bathroom, which is not negative, but I think it's talking to your children and setting boundaries as to, okay, this is why mom is upset. And a lot of that is coming from the clients that I'm seeing is past trauma coming up. It's not even towards their children directly. Or like you're saying, usually parents only see their children maybe 1 to 2 hours a day, and now they're seeing them 24/7. So if there wasn't boundaries set prior, there's definitely no boundaries now, and it's kind of free range. So I definitely think communication can resolve a lot of that, just explaining
Really good.
This is what parents are feeling and expressing it to your child, so hopefully they can understand. And children they're angry too, and teaching them how to express it. Okay, why are you reacting that way? Why are you pounding on the bathroom door when I'm just, in here for 5 minutes? What are you experiencing? Like, how can we talk about these things together so you feel somewhat of peace in your personal space, and I have personal space as well as the parent?
Yeah. Really, it's really great that teaching our children how to communicate in time of crisis, I think, is one of the best things that can come out of this, because this won't be the last time they deal with some sort of crisis. Now, they may not be experiencing it full on. They've got food in their refrigerator, they have electricity, they have hot and cold running water, they're now out on the streets, so their needs are taken care of, like the, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but the emotional piece, the social piece, the engagement with other human beings is missing. And that's where I think a lot of this rises up. So teaching our children how to communicate through upset and anger is really beneficial. Tammy, what do you have to add inside that conversation? Because, you do the clearing out, and, given that people's their traumas are rising up, what's something that they can do, that will help them deal with that as well?
So one of the things that I recommend to every person I know, as well as my clients, it's a book called The Secret Language of Feelings. I'm going to show the picture.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's by Calvin Banyan. And it's something that I've always taught my clients, but he has a way to really break it down that I love. And I teach my clients how to teach their children, or if they're teens, I teach them how to understand. So, for example, sadness is them experiencing loss, and there is loss going on. So being able to talk about, hey, it's normal when you feel lost. You haven't seen your friend. So let's call your friend. So first of all, it's talking about the emotion, letting it feel safe and normal, understanding what it's there for, realizing it's there to help. What's it helping me need? Well, it helps me bring value. So what's something I could do to bring value? I could Facebook or FaceTime my friend. I could, draw a picture of them. I could look at some photos of them. And so that's how you clear it out, by really going into it directly. And especially anger. Anger tells you that something is unjust and unfair. All of this is unjust and unfair. Then we get to take a look at the other side of it. Okay, so this is unjust and unfair. Okay, and how are we thinking about it? Is that thinking helping us, or is that thinking hurting us? So let's talk about it first, so we get it out and not try to chew on it. I describe it like having throw up in your mouth. You don't want to keep chewing on it. It's not fun. You don't want to swallow it down.
No.
Get it out. Let's talk about it. And if children are at the age where they don't want to talk about it, or they're not comfortable, or don't even know how, and this is the same for adults, write it down. So write down what the negative thoughts seem to be, and what do you feel when you think that thought. And that helps them to get it out, and it creates a clearing. The brain is like a muscle, and the more you lift this particular thing, the more tired it's going to get from it. And then once that's out, you're feeling more clear and more refreshed, and then you can put in the new ideas. And during this time, a big one that's coming up besides anger is depression and isolation, that loneliness, and connected to that is feeling helpless. And if we help ourselves to understand, there's these unconscious beliefs that we have about depression means there's something wrong with us. Depression means that, we want to die, or that sometimes people think, oh, I want to take my life. It doesn't mean that. It just means that you haven't taken care of these emotions, and your body's so overwhelmed that depression comes in to say, whoa, enough already, before you feel so totally overwhelmed that you can't take it. So depression is even a helpful emotion. I work with therapists all the time to help people understand what their core belief is about it. If I think depression is bad, I can't even have a conversation about it. If I think a thought that says, I'm done with this, I can't do this anymore, means I want to die, and that's bad, then I can't talk to somebody and go, hey, that's absolutely normal. I was thinking about that the other day, and I ate a pizza because of it.
Yeah, people, because I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, right? So that was like ordering a pizza is so not what I eat, and that, yeah. and because I had to say it. I had to say it out loud, and take the action. And, what really gave me power was to say it, to be heard. And then, I took whatever action there was to take, and I'm clear that satisfied whatever that was. And I'm all done with that now. And having people to talk to, exercising, I know is really making a difference. For people, having them get out. I've seen more families be out for walks, riding their bikes. I was on my walk yesterday. His mom was taking her son out for a walk, and he was so fascinated by the little red bugs, and I could see her getting frustrated. So I stopped, and I got interested in the red bugs. And then she got interested in the red bugs because he was. So, sometimes just having that other adult in the environment makes a difference too. So if I'm home alone and I have my kid, maybe I'm a single parent, right? Or maybe my significant other is an essential worker and they're out working at the hospital or the whatever. What's some ways that I can share with my significant other or a friend that will keep me empowered, and have me be heard? Christy, what's some ways we can do that?
I think with significant others, if you do have one and you're a parent, I think utilizing some type of system of structure or balance in the parenting is helpful. And like you're saying, even out, you jumped in as an outsider to say, okay, let's create some equality here. You take a break, let me provide that for you, and then step away. And then she felt a little somewhat refreshed, oh, thank you for letting me just have a moment, in that time. And I think it's good to communicate that with spouses as well. Like you're saying, even if they are an essential worker, even if this was just a regular time where people are going to work, coming home, how can we divide up the parenting equally so it doesn't feel like so much pressure on one person? And then I think for single moms or single dads, just allowing some type of structure within the household where you do have that time. If it's little ones, maybe even nap time, to where you can have a breather, or just creating some sort of structure in the schedule where it's like, okay, let's divide up the time. So I feel like I have a schedule, so do you. Homework time, whether that's individual or not, setting them up with, online lessons and things like that, that they can feel like, okay, I have my own little independent time as well. And the parent gets that too.
Yeah, really great. I think those are both all really helpful tools. And the last thing I want to cover for us is, people are experiencing high levels of anxiousness, even if they're normally not anxious.
Mm-hmm.
There's this anxiousness, worry, concern. We don't know what's going to happen in the economy. Even huge corporations are laying people off. So now there's this, am I going to get my job back? When am I going to get my job back? How am I going to provide for my family? Concerns and worries, valid, very, very valid. And it's really challenging to make decisions when you're in that space, because you're reacting from the survival mechanism versus doing the cognitive thinking about, working your way out of it and being grounded in reality. Because if I worry about something that hasn't happened yet, that has me taking actions on something that isn't real. It's just not real. So let's talk about some ways we can help people manage their anxiousness and their worries and their upsets in reality that gives them power. Christy, I'm going to start with you.
I think that, and just when you were saying that, I had a moment myself where I had to remind myself, I'm thinking about the future too, creating anxiety. But every day I'm like, you're in the present. This is a good moment. Like, focus on literally this second you're in right now, which usually is not as stressful as all these thoughts going to the future and rabbit trails and thinking the what ifs and what is going to happen when we really don't know for sure yet. But everything's a possibility. And I think just touching on what you're explaining too, a lot of people have their identity in their job. So if they don't have a job, they don't have an identity. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, even like an identity crisis, because, even when we socialize, hey, what do you do? Hey, where do you work? It's the first question. If you don't have that answer, if you don't have that identity, you don't know how to express yourself. You don't know how to identify as a person. So I think just removing these job titles has created a lot of strife for people, mentally, emotionally, but I think it can be useful because it's going back to, okay, who am I outside of my job? What are my core beliefs? What am I passionate about, outside of that job title? And I think that takes a lot of soul searching that a lot of people haven't done. Even, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they've never identified core beliefs or core values. What's important to them? What are they passionate about outside of this job title maybe they've had their whole life that's been stripped away during this time?
So it sounds like journaling, or notebooking or writing something down would be really helpful. And so I want to go over those 3 questions again. So if I'm feeling anxious, I could, and really, doing that kind of work, I think will help people go back to work, more empowered individuals. So it's, what are my passions, right? What's important to me?
And then core beliefs.
Yeah, my core beliefs. So what are my core beliefs? And then what was the third one?
Just who do I identify as a person? Some people, like you're saying, might be thrown into, oh, I'm just a parent now, when I was,
Yes.
an IT professional or something else that they identified with. And, they have, that affects them mentally when things are stripped away from them out of their control.
Right. Right. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and we've pretended in life that stuff has been certain, and it's not.
Or in our control. We like to control things.
We do, because that provides certainty, right? Provides
Right.
that kind of ground of foundation, and that's in reality, life has always been uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really great opportunity for us as grown-ups, and we can even have our kids work on some of this too. It's like, what are you passionate about? What's important to you? What are characteristics that you like in friends? What has them be your friends? I think it'd be a great exercise, back to you, Tammy, and I'm going to have you expand this on this too, is be a great opportunity for the parents and the kids to sit down and share, what they're passionate about, so they can see where they have things in common.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And Tammy, so thank you. So great, Christy, for people just to take a moment. And if I have my child doing homework, that gives me a moment to, gives me 30, 40 minutes to do some thinking about myself as opposed to panicking.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting grounded in reality of, wow, I really am, this is important to me and I am passionate about that. Great. So Tammy, how about you? What are some exercises and some things people can do to manage their anxiousness or worries or concerns right now?
Well, I think what Christy was saying is so important. Looking at your life like it still has a schedule. You still want to have your bedtime. You still want to have your wake up time. It gets so easy to stay up late and watch TV or eat late. So it's really important. I like to break it down: mind, body, spirit. So your mind needs the rest that it needs. Your body also needs the rest that it needs. It needs the food, it needs the water. Taking care of those things, if you're not getting it, you're going to hit anxious and you won't even know it, because your body physiologically is reacting. Too much sugar now, because we're sitting around, we might eat more processed foods or more sugary things. We're going to be more jittery, more coffee. So we have to keep an eye on those things and continue to keep routine. That's so important. What she was saying is essential. Another thing that you can add to your journaling, I wrote this for our group today. It's going to look a little funny, but on one hand, you write down the negative thoughts that you have, and negative doesn't mean bad. It just means, oh, it brings up a negative emotion. And I like to compare it to a battery. There's the negative side and the positive side. Both make the battery work. Neither is bad. And so this is what you would do. You would write a line down the center, and on this side, write the negative sign, and on this side, write the positive sign. And so for some examples that I've heard around this is, if someone is sick, I should have visited them more. Now I don't have time. So a lot of should have, and that feeling that comes along with that is guilt. I'm not good enough. I don't know what to do. I can't figure this out. I'm not a good parent because I didn't, I don't know how to do all these hours.
Right.
And one that comes up for kids all the time, and sometimes parents, is I don't want to. When we're in the I don't want to, yeah. When we're in the I don't want to, we think that's the truth and that's it. If we allow ourselves to realize this is just a thought, imagine it's just like a bubble, and that bubble, you can pop it, and then you have a clean slate and you create a new bubble. So if there's the thought of I don't want to, well, our subconscious mind, we've taught it to believe when we say I don't want to, it really means I don't want to, and I'm not going to do it, and that's it. But it doesn't mean that. It's just, 4 words? That's it.
Thought.
It's just a thought. Just like I have the thought of, I think I'm going to go outside. No, it's raining. I changed that. So we can allow ourselves to go, well, I had that thought of I don't want to, but what if I did want to? What could happen if I did it? What could the results be? How could this be better? And it just gets you into a better place. It works for kids. It works for adults. That's a really good technique of writing down the thought, the negative thought. And it's negative because it makes you feel angry or mad at the other person or yourself, or it makes you feel lonely, or it makes you feel not good enough, or, those, like the book I shared with you goes over each emotion for you. And then you can go, oh, that was just a thought. And so really what's going on is I was dealing with some pain in my emotion. I was dealing with something that was coming up. So instead I could ask myself, what's happening instead of what's wrong with me. I could say, I could look at what's really great about the situation versus looking at only what's not working. So allowing yourself to see what you were believing about it and what else is also true can have you release the pressure and release the judgment, and also allow you to speak to each other better and in better ways. You're also speaking to yourself in a better way. So this helps you to learn more about you, more about what you're coming up with that limits you, and helps you step into a place that feels way better, and it sets some boundaries. And one activity that I always suggest in setting boundaries is 4 sentences, jotting it down on a little tab or postcard, or even in your notes if you don't like to write in your phone. Number 1 is to come up with something positive. If you're with somebody you love, it could sound something like, I so love you. I love that we're sitting here and we're talking and we're working this out. If you don't like the person or you're really ticked off at them, I'm glad that we're trying, right? It connects, it brings that connection. If you're still really upset, then designate some time, kind of like what you both were saying. Bathroom time, I need 5 minutes, but let the other person know how much time, so it doesn't just feel like you're walking away and rejecting them. It creates a boundary in the boundary. And then the second sentence, so number 1 is a positive affirmation, you and them, create connection. I know we can't get on the same page yet, but we just, we're going to keep this until we figure it out, because I love you. And that just has the other person, okay, I get this. And another question you could ask yourself in that positive, creating that positive, even though I'm really angry at this person or I feel like they hurt me, what do I want to create over there? It gets you back balance. It gets you back into yourself. So those are a couple ways you can work on number 1. Number 2 is saying to that person, when you say or do, and you fill in the blank. So when you say or do, whatever it was. Number 3, I feel or think, and then you fill in the blank. The I feel and I think takes it away from attacking that person. And then number 4, most essential, we always forget this, I need blank. And so, for example, number 1, I know we're really frustrated with each other, but let's sit down and let's write down our thoughts so we can talk about it later. Number 2, now if we're writing it down, obviously we'll do this after, but number 2, when you called me a name, I felt so hurt. I felt, I had the thought like you didn't love me. I need to realize that you always love me. I need to realize that I know you didn't mean that. And I need from you to apologize and tell me what you really meant. Or whatever that need is. And what I like about it is there's so much stuff we're told to do and such good advice, but without the steps, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So this gives you a template of what to know, and writing it down writing down negative and being able to look at writing down the emotion, it helps you to know what to do. And that really, honestly, this work changed my life. That's why I love sharing it. It helped me to stop thinking that all these terrible, horrible things about myself, and it made life so much easier.
Yeah, because, we think our thoughts are us.
Yes.
Yeah, and one of my favorite sayings is, I am not my thoughts, feelings, or emotions, or body sensations. It's just a swath of chemicals designed by my body to survive, not thrive. And it's, and to be like, nope, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my feelings. My body's having an experience, and that's not who I am. Really gives people some power. Okay, great. So, all right. So ladies, thank you so much. Christy, any parting last words, any, one last little tip you want to share with people, and I'll have Tammy do the same, and then we're going to sign off.
Yeah, just bouncing off what she just said, I think it's just a lifelong lesson, and I think a lot of teenagers experience this. But if you're expressing your love, when we say, I love you unconditionally, that means without condition. So most teenagers feel like, oh, well, I'm only going to receive love if I make good grades, if I do my chores, if I behave well. So they feel like their love is tied to conditions when the parents aren't necessarily intentionally doing that. But I think this is a great time to share you know, I love you regardless, you know, whether you can keep up with the schoolwork right now, do your chores, like how can we create an environment, like she was saying, that there is no conditions attached to, you know, love and acceptance within the household.
Really great. Awesome. Thank you, Christy. And I think, you know, giving teenagers the space to fail and have failure be a learning lesson versus that they're a failure. It's like, no, there's just a gap. You know what? You're not quite getting the algebra yet. It's okay. You know, let's call your teacher and get some tutoring. Let's call your, you know, friend who's really good at algebra and let's see if they can work this through you. There's just a gap in your knowledge. That's it. You are not a failure. There's just really a gap in understanding this particular problem or concept. You know, creating that safe space for our kids to know that they can come talk to us about anything. And that we are human and we might have a reaction, but it's not at them.
Yeah.
It's mostly over here at us. As a parent, everything that happened with my child, good or bad, it's my it's my fault, right? I did that. That's where parents take it. So if something happens to our children, I take it that, well, it's my fault I did that. And then that makes me feel bad. And that cycle starts right there, right? And so for kids to get, hey, we're human too. We have emotions, we have body sensations, we have thoughts and feelings, and they're not mostly at all directed towards you. It's over here at my own failures as a parent or perceived failures as a parent. I think it's really great for parents to create that safe space and give also their kids an opportunity to coach them. You know, what are some techniques you've learned in school, you know, that can help during this time? So the parent isn't always the answer person. Okay, Tammy, any last tips you want to share?
Sure. I think it's important to know, to keep in mind that just like when parents are helping their kids, they feel really good. It's important to make sure that you allow yourself to get help. That way you can, instead of going, oh, well, you know, I can't do that. I shouldn't be asking for help. I should know this. Just like when your friend comes to you and says, hey, I needed some advice. I want to run this through. I want to find a neutral person. That same thing is perfect for a teen, for a parent. Being okay and knowing that getting help is just part of like giving help. It feels really good. It allows that space. A lot of times parents are doing the best that they can and teens are doing the best that they can, but they both are believing they're not good enough. They both are believing that love is unconditional on the other side. And so when you have somebody that comes in and says, hey, this is what mom means when she says that, and hey, mom, this is what I get that your child means when they're saying that, then they both can go, that's exactly what I meant. That's it. And they feel so heard. So it's totally okay to have somebody to be able to help you with that, whether it's a pastor, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a therapist or a hypno coach, or, you know, look for that support, because we're not supposed to know everything.
No.
Absolutely. And teenagers especially, they know everything they know, so they know everything. But there's this aspect of the way I've found that teenagers are, is they bring everything down on themselves and they blame themselves even worse than parents do.
Yes.
And so to speak to teens, allowing yourself to realize unintentionally you're creating an experience of bullying yourself and self-abusing yourself. And that's so painful. Would you look at a friend and say, you're not good enough, you're just useless, you're a waste of time? No, would never say that to somebody. But if you realize you're saying that to yourself all the time, and so that would explain the pain, that would explain the isolation and the separation. And so realizing you're saying things to yourself, and it's okay, it's normal and natural when you don't know you're doing it. But now as you're learning that, you can stop it and make those changes and help yourself be your best friend.
Really great. Really, really great. Well, ladies, thank you both so much. I'm going to post this shortly right on Facebook, and I'll tag you. And then if you could, in the bodies, you know, put the link for the book, put the you know, 3 questions, Christy, that you wrote down, and then Tammy, the plus and the minus, like the battery, you know, just go ahead and add those things in the comments. I think will really make a difference for people today.
Awesome. Thank you
you.
so much for having us.
Oh my gosh, totally my pleasure.